What is going on, everyone? Chris Kennedy here. I am back, and tonight I'm going to talk to 2021 Ole Miss Rebels. Lane Kiffin has the fan base really pumped up right now based off of what he accomplished in 2020. They ended the season the right way, winning 4 of 5 games. And when you look at who's coming back, there are lots of reasons to feel good about things. Now, we're going to look at the schedule. We're going to talk the offense, the defense, some of the incoming recruits they have, and then I'm going to give you my prediction on how I think the season will play out. But before I do that, go ahead, please like and subscribe to my channel. I love college football. I'm an Alabama fan, but I like looking at all these teams and trying to give a very, very unbiased and logical perspective and outlook on how I think things will play out. So when you look at Ole Miss, really it's a tale of two different things. They were phenomenal offensively. They ranked third in the country, averaged 555 yards a game. Really exciting to watch. On the defensive end of the ball, they were terrible. They ranked 126th in the country, gave up 519 yards a game. So great on the offensive end, terrible on the defensive end. What is 2021 going to look like? We will see. Now, when you look at the offensive side of the ball, start no further than looking at what Matt Corral did. Matt Corral, I thought, had a really good year, 29 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, but threw 10 interceptions in 2 games, the Arkansas game and the LSU game. So if you erase those 2 games from his record, those are really solid numbers. Also had about 500 yards rushing. So I think there's no doubt Ole Miss feels that we have our quarterback with Matt Corral. Your running backs, Jarian Ealy, Snoop Connor, and Henry Parrish all saw action. I think Lane Kiffin did a good job of using all his tools, every weapon he has, and it was a well-balanced attack. Your receivers, Elijah Moore, 87 catches, 8 touchdowns. Kenny Yeboah had 6 touchdowns himself. Then you had guys like Darian Drummond and Jonathan Ringo that all contributed. So offensively, there is no concern. Lane Kiffin is a very innovative and exciting guy when it comes to offensive football. He showed that at Alabama. He's been that way really his whole career, and no signs of slowing up at all. Now, you do lose some guys on the offensive side of the ball. Elijah Moore is going pro. Kenny Yeboah is out. You also lose your right tackle. But with Jonathan Ringo coming back, Dantario Drummond coming back, and then guys like Braylon Sanders who really stepped up, got the nod in the South Carolina game and played, I think it was 3 games, had about 300 yards receiving, 3 touchdowns, 10 catches, showed that he could fit in nicely as well. As far as your recruiting class, you recruited 12 guys on the offensive end of the ball, some good receivers. You bring in a guy like Brandon Buckhalter, 6'3", Braylon Brown, the wide receiver, 6'2", J.J. Henry, a 5'10" speedster that you can use in the deep game, and then you got Hudson Wolf, a 6'6" tight end who's got pretty good hands. So I think all these players combined with what you already have will fit in nicely with what Lane Kiffin tries to do there. Like I said, no concerns on the offensive end of the ball. Now, talking the defensive side of things, there's where the issues are. Like I mentioned, you were not very good, ranked 126th in the country, gave up a lot of yards, had to make a defensive line coaching change, and just fundamentally not a very good team on the defensive side. Nobody would argue that. Those are the concerns. Now, you addressed a lot of the needs. You had 13 players you recruited on the defensive side, got a great defensive tackle, 6 defensive backs. You got a couple of linebackers or 1 linebacker. So Lane is trying to fix some of those problems, and he knows that he needs to do this because if you don't play good defense, you can only go so far. So you only lose Ryder Anderson from the defensive side of the ball, very experienced, and A.J. Finley I thought was a very good player, so we will see how it plays out. I expect Ole Miss to be better on the defensive end. You can only really kind of go up. I think I've said this same thing for some of the other teams that I've reviewed, And, Ole Miss falls in that same boat. Now, overall team-wise, and one of the reasons I think you should be excited about what Ole Miss can do is they are the most experienced team as far as offensive and defensive production for 2021. I mean, they returned 78% on the offensive side, 83% on the defensive side. So there is no problems as far as continuity with players and, in-game experience because you have all that. So logically, you should just be a better football team. But, going from 126, making a drastic change, that is a tall task to ask. Now, we'll go ahead, we'll take a look at the schedule. You open up against Louisville. Louisville, they went 4-7 last year. Not a very good team. They do have some returning players coming back, so I also believe Louisville will be better, but you guys should win this game in Atlanta. You get Austin Peay, that should be a win. Tulane will be a win. You're off, and then you get Alabama in Tuscaloosa, and that's the one everybody's excited about because you remember what Lane Kiffin did last year. I mean, put up 48 points. I mean, ran the ball well, threw the ball well, really kind of put Matt Corral on the map. And people say, hey, if he did this year one, why can't he do it year two? So that should be very fun to see how it plays out. And look, Ole Miss is no stranger to beating Alabama. You did it with Bo Wallace back in 2013. You did it with Chad Kelly. So, we know that Ole Miss can get it done, and they did it playing some really good offense. After Alabama, you get Arkansas. You get Tennessee on the road after that. Then you get LSU. I think this LSU game is going to be tough. LSU's returning a lot. So, don't be surprised if, LSU looks like a completely different team. You got Auburn on the road. I think that will be another tough game. A lot of people think Auburn is kind of in this rebuilding mode, but I think Brian Harsin's going to field a pretty damn good football team next year. I like Brian Harsin as a coach. I don't expect Auburn to be competing for the SEC championship, but they're not going to be, I think, as down as a lot of people think. Then you get the Liberty game. The Liberty game should be fun. Hugh Freeze returning back to the Grove. Liberty, a very experienced team, knocked off Coastal Carolina in the Cure Bowl, went 11-1, and are returning just a lot of players. So it should be very fun. You should win that game. You're a more talented team. But just seeing Hugh Freeze back in the Grove, that's kind of interesting. I don't know how fans feel about that. Then you get Texas A&M. That's going to be tough. Texas A&M, a very good team. You get Vanderbilt. Then you get Mississippi State. So when I look at this schedule, I mean, make no mistake about it, it's a tough schedule. You guys will be good on the offensive side of the ball, but the question mark is the defensive end, or the defensive side of things. When I look at this, I think Ole Miss is probably going to fall in that 8-win, 9-win category. The 4 games, Texas A&M, Auburn, LSU, Alabama, I think you will win at least one of those games, but winning all 4, that is tough. That's really tough, and it's really tough if you're not playing good defense. Look, we've seen this before where teams are good offensively and not good defensively. Case in point, 2018 Oklahoma with Kyler Murray. I mean, they could run it up on anybody when they had the ball, but when they had to stop somebody, they just couldn't do it. They played Alabama. A lot of people thought to themselves, well, what if they can do this? What if they can do that? And then in a blink of an eye, they were down 28-0, and it was over. 2019, they were a little bit better on the defensive end, but what happened when they played LSU? They got blown out again. And it wasn't until this year Oklahoma started playing some pretty good defense. Now in 2021, they are a legitimate national championship contender. So I think Ole Miss really has to step up that defensive play to really kind of take that next step. Now, we've seen teams in the past make drastic changes in just one year. UCF in 2015 ranked 112th. 2016, they ranked 30th. That is out of the norm, but it is possible. I think what will happen is you will see slow progression, and if not, then you're just going to see the same outcome for this Ole Miss team. But in my personal opinion, 8, 9 wins, that's probably where it's going to fall, and they will probably beat somebody that maybe they are going to be an underdog against. But you guys let me know in the comments what you think. Do you think Ole Miss will maybe crack that 10-win total? Do you think they will be competing for the SEC West? I mean, what do you think will happen for them in 2021? And if they do struggle, what do they need to address before they can really move on to being that top tier football team? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I really appreciate you guys listening in, and we'll talk to you again soon.